So this is our review of the Husqvarna Svartpilen 701. Let's get into it. So I was super excited to get hold of this bike. Basically, we did a static review at the 2018 Motorcycle Live on this bike. It looks really amazing, and it was kind of building on the success of the Svartpilen 701 that I'm a massive fan of. And if you saw the review that we did a couple of weeks ago, I put that out there as my favourite bike of last year, and I stand by that. It was absolutely wicked. So we're really excited to get hold of the Svartpilen, which we did about a couple of months ago. The first thing to say about the Svartpilen 701 is it looks absolutely sick. You know, in my opinion, Husqvarna really nailed their aesthetic, and the Svartpilen is no different. So Svartpilen literally means black arrow. So obviously the bike is all black, but I really like what they've done with it, the way they've used line work, the way that they've used a mix between gloss and matte finishing, just really breaks up the design. I love the nod to the sort of flat trackery style, the fact that they put like sort of semi-knobbly tyres on it. I think it looks really, really hot in my opinion. So Husqvarna are a premium manufacturer of motorcycles, and you can kind of tell that from the finishing of the bike, whether that's the paint work, the componentry that they put on it, all the finishing is really, really top notch. And I love the quality of it. And actually you should see the 2020 model that's just about to come out. They've added this like kind of browny golden look to it, and it really takes it up an extra notch. And it's got spoked wheels as well, which I think just looks awesome. They'll be rolling into dealers probably in the next month or so. So how does it ride? Well, if you've seen the Svartpilen 701 video that we did a couple of weeks ago, you'll know from that that bike was my favourite for 2019. I still stand by that. It was an absolute cracker. The Svartpilen basically shares a lot of the components. It shares the same engine, it's got the same chassis, same suspension, same brakes, just a different riding position and look. So, you know, from my point of view, it's an absolute banger. It's a real recipe for success. The Svartpilen rides incredibly well. So the 690 single-cylinder engine fitted into the Svartpilen is an absolute cracker. It's got loads of shove, above 3,000 revs, it's really smooth, and it's got loads of power right up to the red line. It's a boatload of fun, honestly, and even though it's got 75 horsepower, and I know quite a few guys who won't even look at a bike unless it's got like 100 horsepower, I'm telling you, this has got more than enough power for the road. It's a load of fun, and especially when you combine that sort of low down mid-range punch with the fact that actually the bike weighs 160 kilos dry, it's got ample power to have a load of fun on the road. And, you know, sort of ignoring it, you do so at your peril basically, because I think you could keep up with much faster bikes than you'd expect on this bike. I suppose trying to think about bikes that might be similar in an aesthetic and for that kind of customer, and how they compare. Like a bike like the R9T, for example, that we rode quite a bit last year and was one of our most sort of successful YouTube videos. While that bike has got quite a bit more power, it's also quite a bit heavier as well. And actually, you know, from my sort of unscientific approach and just from memory, I think the bikes are probably quite comparable in terms of their performance. I don't think you'd actually lose that much on the R9T if you compared it to the Svartpilen. And actually at the Bike Shed Festival there was quite a few R9Ts, and I wasn't really losing anything to them on the straights. In all, actually, I think this 690 engine, for me and my point of view, is one of the best engines for the road, actually. I think it's fun enough, I think it's really engaging, I think it's got a load of torque, I think it does a banging wheelie, and yeah, it's super fun to ride on the road without going so fast that you just lose your license. I think this engine is a really awesome road option if you're looking for a huge amount of fun, basically. And because the Svartpilen is much lighter in comparison to a lot of the competition at 160 kilos, I think it's a lot easier to manage in a slow speed setting. So if you have got like quirky places that you park your bike, or you're in a city, or you're doing a lot of like tight space maneuvering, particularly if you're shorter or not strong, or you're a female or something like that, I think this bike is going to do really, really well in comparison to some of the heavier models out there. So the handling on the Svartpilen is excellent. The bike comes fitted with the WP Apex suspension, which is fully adjustable. So you can sort of alter it depending on your weight or how you like the ride, for example. I think that's a really, really nice feature on this bike. On the bike, I think you can ride leisurely. I think you can probably chuck a couple of trails at it as well, considering the tyre selection. And when the pace gets on a little bit, this bike can really, really get a hustle on too, and it doesn't get all out of sorts. It's really balanced, it's really composed, and we did ride it relatively fast as well. And I had no trouble keeping up with the Svartpilen, even though it's a bit more of an aggressive sort of riding position and stuff. It just loved those Lake District roads. It was really, really nice. You know, I'm personally more of a fan of a bit more of an engaging riding position like the one on the Svartpilen. My own bike's a GSXR 750, so obviously that's a proper sports bike. However, that doesn't really stop you getting a hammer on, and I realise at the same time I'm probably the wrong side of most people's preference. Most people prefer like a sit-up job and a bit more comfortable and all that kind of stuff. So I'm probably the wrong side on that. But the riding position isn't really going to stop you doing anything that you could do on a more engaging bike like the Svartpilen, for example. So on test, we wore all the items from the Knox collection, and the aesthetic of our products with that bike worked really, really well, with obviously the trusted Knox protection too. We took some images as well while we had the bike in the Lake District. I think they turned out really well. You might have seen them on our social media profiles actually. And if you want to check out any of the gear that we're riding in, you can check the links in the description below. So please go and check them out and support what we're doing. So on a braking front, the Svartpilen comes with a single disc brake. Now normally when I'm riding a bike that's got a single disc, I'm like, is this actually going to work or not? No issues on the Svartpilen. It's got a massive 320mm disc up the front, and it's got a really, really powerful Brembo caliper, and it handles the job no problems. I think probably partly in fact that it's a massive caliper, and at the same time, obviously the bike is only 160 kilos dry, so handles it no problems in my experience. On the tyre front, the Svartpilen is running the Pirelli MT60s. Now this is like a road orientated on and off road tyre. That's the description of it. And when you look at it, you think, especially as a sports rider, you kind of look at, or predominantly road rider, you look at the tyre and you think, well, half the contact patch is missing, how's this going to work out? In my experience of riding the bike, actually I think they're pretty good. You know, I think they're a really good overall tyre. They're absolutely fine on the road. I rode in the wet and the dry. I didn't really have any moments. Is there sort of stickier road rubber out there? Of course there's going to be. But at the same time, I didn't have any problems. And like I said, we were riding them relatively fast. But it also gives you the opportunity that if you did want to go out and check a couple of trails out, or lighter sort of trail work, you could probably go and do that on the Svartpilen. And make it into a bit more of an all-rounder bike, and they also look really cool as well. So all in all, I think Husqvarna have got a real winner with this bike. I think it's absolutely fantastic. But in the interest of fairness and of this not just looking like an advert, which it's not by the way, there are a couple of downsides and I'll list them here. Firstly is that the seat is pretty uncomfortable. It's thin, like that thin. It's pretty hard. And while it's quite wide, which means that you sort of spread your weight across that width, you can't get around the fact that, you know, it's a hard seat. You know, that's part of the style and I absolutely understand that. But it's one of those things, it's quite interesting. You sit on the bike and you think immediately, God, the seat is absolutely rock hard, this is going to kill me. But then after like a 4-hour ride, I was like, it wasn't that bad actually. So I think actually it's quite a nice, it's quite a well-designed seat. It's just the fact that it's hard, and when I've seen people sit on them at shows and stuff, that's what they always comment on. God, this is a rock hard seat. But actually, unless you're doing like massive trips or something like that, or planning to ride like 4, 5, 6 hours at a time, I don't think it's as big a deal as possibly people would make out. Of course, there's limited pillion options. So if your intention is to take a pillion on the back of this Svartpilen quite often, this is probably not going to be the bike for you. The pillion option is pretty terrible. You know, you could take a guy like half a mile up the road or every once in a while, but this is not really a pillion bike just from the nature of it, and you can kind of tell that from the images too. Probably connected to that issue is the idea that you're probably not going to be able to put that much luggage on the back because the seat is so short. So if you're doing like massive trips and stuff, there's probably not a huge amount of room to strap luggage on to. Which kind of is against the design of the bike anyway, but it's the kind of thing that we get in YouTube comments, but it's no good for this or it's no good for that. Maybe that's obvious, but I thought I'd put it in there anyway. And finally, the price. I'm sure that people would complain about the price. The price of the bike for 2020 is £9,300. But what you've got to remember, this is a premium motorcycle. It is a real premium motorcycle, and Husqvarna are a premium motorcycle manufacturer. It's got quality components, and I'm telling you, you don't see the type of components in the cheaper sort of alternatives to this bike. You're not getting adjustable suspension. You're just not getting the fit and finish that this bike has got. Plus, again, you know, it's a premium brand, and you've got to take that into account when you're looking at this machine. So I hope you enjoyed our little review of the Svartpilen 701. I think it's an absolute wicked bike. I really hope to see more of them out on the roads here, and I'm sure that you guys would love the bike if you got the chance to ride it too. So thanks so much for watching. Please like, please comment, please subscribe to the channel too, and we'll see you next time.